like her dad is my mom's brother's brother. Like they
Her
got the
dad is
same
your
mom,
mom's brother.
and my mom and her uncle got the same dad. You feel what I'm saying? So
So
it's closely related, but we
did y'all
not
grow up
related.
together?
Well, I'm a lot older than she is, but I grew up with her uncle and shit kind of helped raise us and whatnot. Actually, her dad and my uncle Jay were real tight, and my cousin Mondale, who is also her cousin Mondale, were real tight. And I'm
Every
more
time
in
I
that
see
age
you,
group.
I only recognize you because you got paint on your shirt.
Yeah.
When I was looking at you, I was like, what did you say his name was?
Yeah.
You were paying something before you came?
Today, no. No, I wasn't. No. All right, cool. Yeah.
Wow, man, that's funny. It's a small world.
Yeah, it's a small world. I felt the same exact way when I saw your brother last week. But I recognized him before because he looks just like your dad or whatever. So,
Definitely do.
Wow.
yeah.
Well, man, thank you for coming on the show, bro. We rolling right now, so.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you what's crazy though. Her grandmother and my grandmother, right? This is the relationship right here, right? So so
Oh, she already knows what you're gonna say.
her grandmother and my grandmother had children from the same guy,
Okay.
right? Which is my mom and her uncle, right?
Okay.
Now her uncle is my mom's younger brother, right? So after my grandmother and my mom's biological dad broke up, and my grandmother remarried, my biological grandfather, right, had a child with her grandmother.
That's
Right?
just confusing as fuck, bro. I'm not even gonna lie to you.
Right?
Wait, so y'all are blood then? But y'all are blood then?
No.
Hold on, wait.
No, because check it.
Oh no, your grandmother and her grandmother had a kid with the same guy.
Had a kid with the same, got the same baby daddy, right?
Oh, okay.
But
I got you.
But her uncle is my granddad's son, right? But her dad,
We
who is
share an uncle.
we share an uncle. We share an uncle.
Related.
That's
Her
funny.
dad is not related to me, even though her dad's brother is related to me. Because they got different dads. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get
now,
it.
the catcher is, this is the catcher, right?
There's another catcher?
Yeah.
Damn.
that after my mom did not know her brother growing up, right? They didn't know each other, right? Like she heard about him.
Be in that mic a little bit if you can.
She heard about him, but she didn't know him or whatever, because her dad passed away when she was younger or whatever, and turns out when they were adults, when I was a kid, her grandmother ended up moving directly across the street from my grandmother, so the two baby mamas end up living directly across the street from each other. So
Were they
the
cool
grandchildren. So my cousin Mondale, who is my biological grandfather's grandchild, who they never met either, we end up growing up right across the street from each other. It's crazy.
Is this the grandma you've been telling me about?
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah. Miss Nettie. Yeah.
Yeah, bro. It'd be weird. Like I got family
crazy,
all
yeah.
over too, man. Like,
Yeah. Yep.
it's funny, just like growing up, bro. Like I've been thinking about this recently too, because I'm going to Bosnia next month. I'm from Bosnia. I don't know if you know, but so I have family over there that I grew up with and stuff. So it's like I'll go there in the summertime and like visit as like growing up as a kid, and like have these relationships with my cousins over there and stuff. I'll be there for like a month or two. And then I'll come back here, and then we'll kind of just become distant again. Mm-hmm. And that would happen like every time I go over there. But it's like being a kid, you don't think about it that much. But now that I'm older, it's like, damn, I realize like I really don't have relationships with some of my family members that I like wish I did.
Yeah.
So it's like a weird dilemma. Like,
yeah, it's crazy. I can relate to that. Like within my own family, but I was thinking of an example with my wife because she's from Switzerland, right? And so, well, her mom is from Switzerland. So we go there occasionally to visit like her grandmother and whatnot. But they had like a little family reunion 2 summers ago when we went there, like kind of for us, right? To meet everybody. And her grandmother has like 9 siblings or some shit. And so it's mad cousins and uncles and aunts that she
never
never
met.
met.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That don't even speak English, right? But like the
What do they speak?
familial feeling is there. But
Oh, they speak German in Switzerland, right?
they in some parts they speak German, in some part it's like a dialect of German. They call it Swiss German.
Okay.
And then that's what her family speaks. But then in some areas they speak French.
Yeah.
And so some of her family speaks French. And so it's and then some areas they speak Italian. So it's interesting. Switzerland is an interesting place, yo. But yeah, I can just relate to that, man. But the family thing is crazy, yo. You know, one thing I trip out on is like genealogy, right? Because a lot of people, like when you think about like your ancestors, there'll be like this image that drums up of like a old ass dude and some long ass time ago, and like an old woman some long time ago, and you're like, damn, these are my ancestors, right? Like if you vision it, you probably visioning like a man in like, you know, Africa somewhere doing something. But this was crazy, right? If you do the mathematics on this shit,
Yeah.
right? If you go from your parents, 2 people, right? Then your 4 grandparents, then your 8 great-grandparents, and your 16 great-great-grandparents, and your 32 great-great-great-grandparents, and your 64 great-great-great-great-grandparents. Yo, when you get to the 25th generation, it's millions and millions and millions of direct parents you have.
Yeah.
Like, it takes millions of individuals.
That's
right?
funny. You know what's funny, bro? I'm big on that. I literally said that on the show so many times. Like, bro, like just how crazy it is, how many people had to meet, and how many literally like shit, how much shit had to fall in place just for you to like be here right now.
Yeah. It's insane.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's insane.
Yeah, for sure.
It's perfect.
Yeah. Nah, welcome to the All For a Podcast, man. I ain't even do the damn intro. I'm sitting here with Ace. He's the president and director of Contemporary Arts Network. I'm here. I actually hope to like learn a lot about you guys today too. What I know is kind of so you guys have a studio here in Newport News where they kind of they have a concert like venue set up. They have a art gallery. You can rent out the space for different types of events, stuff like that. But what I've kind of been getting hip to is you guys are actually like more of an like y'all bigger than that. Just y'all were there. Y'all existed before the studio existed.
Yes.
So you guys are like bigger than that. Like
Yes.
what is Contemporary Arts Network, man? Like
So, sure, I'll give a breakdown. So, you know, people affectionately call me Ace. Professionally, you know, Asa Jackson is my name. And I guess for me, starting the can, so several years ago, I was running a gallery with a buddy of mine who's a fellow artist and curator, Hampton Boyer. And in the midst of running our gallery in Hampton, Virginia, we started to sort of build a pretty strong network of artists and musicians and poets and writers and dancers and whatnot. And so in 2015, we decided to throw our first festival. So we did an outdoor festival, and it had a really big impact, but also a lot of people were able to connect. And we saw the power of that. So we actually branded that festival the Can Fest before we even started the
2015?
2015.
I'm trying to remember I don't know if I remember that. Yeah.
So CAN standing for Contemporary Arts Network. It was at Mill Point Park in downtown Hampton. So Contemporary Arts Network, then we got together and figured, you know, maybe we should start an organization, a foundation or something like that. So I reached out to a DJ buddy of mine who's also a lawyer and some other people and put together a board and founded a nonprofit. And then it went through several iterations. We sort of, for the first year and a half or so, did the nonprofit thing. We were trying to do a lot of different partnerships with municipalities, trying to found a art center. And
I'm sorry to cut you off. You were trying to get the city to fund it?
Yes,
okay.
we were actually doing business with a lot of different cities. So we were in talks with the city of Hampton for a while, with the city council then in 2015 and 16, about turning the old courthouse into an art center. And so that was one thing. And then we were dealing with the city of Norfolk trying to do the same thing, trying to get municipal buildings to get repurposed. And so we kind of went through the runaround for several years with that. And in the midst of that, we started taking on a lot of different projects that were sort of like auxiliary. So like we might be doing a series of mural jobs over here where we're hiring out other artists, right? Or we might do a consulting job where we're getting with the city on how to put together a specific art project, right? That we might get paid for consulting, or we're doing art advising. So like helping people who want to build art collections tap into where to look, how to price, you know what I mean, a budget and different things like that. So we got to working in a lot of auxiliary type of capacities. And in 2017, I moved out to LA for a year to tighten up some connections that I had and do some research. So when I came back, one of the connections that I made out there ended up being a good friend that ended up turning into a patron a year later. She ended up buying this building for us and then helping us to, you know, renovate it.
Patron, is that like an investor or?
You can look at it that way. A patron, I think, is somebody who just generally supports something, right? So a patron could be an investor, right? But a patron could be, you know, somebody who, you know, views your podcast, right?
Yeah, because I think I've heard like in bars or restaurants they call customers patrons,
exactly.
right? Yeah.
So just anyone who generally supports you, right? And so this is a friend who's not an art collector, right? But she supported our vision. And when I moved back to Virginia, I actually was appointed by the governor to be a state arts commissioner.
Oh, Virginia.
Yeah.
That's big. Wow.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah.
And so I've been a commissioner now for 3 years. And
my bad. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I have 2 more years on my stint. So yeah.
Yeah. What does a state arts commissioner do?
A state arts commissioner in Virginia, for the Virginia Commission of the Arts, our tasks are to help manage the state art budget. So basically the tax dollars that go into the arts of Virginia, that gets doled out to different museums and different nonprofits and different artists in the form of grants. We create those grants and we manage those projects, as well as create policy to help, you know, guide the arts in Virginia. And so, you know, it's dealing with everything from, you know, grant making and funding, but also dealing with, you know, seeing what's going on in the arts generally, and creating policy, you know, to make sure that there's access to the arts for all people, like whether, you know, people with disabilities or the homeless or the rich or the poor or, you know, racial or gender or whatever, just making sure that everybody has an equitable and accessible experience with the arts.
Yeah, so you said, so you guys came up trying to get the city to help you out in the beginning. Yeah. Now it sounds like you're the person to call at the city to help other people out, right?
Well, I don't know, man. You know, like...
Wait, my bad. Before even that, did the city end up... Because you said that you had a patron get that building for you. So did the city ever even really help you guys get anywhere?
So we've done several projects with different cities. And interestingly, that relationship with the courthouse and the mayor of Hampton actually recently swung back around. Because everything is about relationships. Like I remember hearing that when I was like maybe 13 years old, and my brother was graduating. I was maybe 14. My brother was graduating from high school, and my uncle, he was trying to like get my uncle to give him some like recommendations or something. And I just remember my uncle telling him, you know, it's not what you know, but who you know, you know? And we've all heard that statement, right? But that just, at that time, it didn't sink in all the way as a 14-year-old, but as I've been an adult and going through the professional realms, I definitely see that's true. You don't want to burn bridges because there's this, this saying, meet them on the way up, meet them on the way down. One of my older partners says that. It's like, you got to treat everybody the same way because you never know who you're going to cross again, and you never know, who's looking or who you're entertaining, right? So, yeah, it's interesting, man. I wouldn't say I'm the person to call, but I definitely would say that I value relationships, and I try to maintain good standing with people. You feel what I'm saying? Because your network is your net worth, right? So, like, with that city thing, with the city of Hampton, for instance, Donnie Tuck, who is the mayor of Hampton, in 2016 was a city council member. And we had several meetings. We were trying to acquire that building. They were actually thinking about giving it to us for $1, but they wanted us to renovate it for $3 million. And so, it was just a lot going on or whatever. And so the deal didn't go through the way we planned, and we ended up backing off. But we maintained the relationship. So from 2016 to now,
He became mayor.
yeah, he became mayor. I became a commissioner. We see each other at different functions. We saw each other at the governor's mansion. We see each other at Fort Monroe functions. We see each other at...
That was a flex right there. You said we seen each other at the governor's mansion.
I mean, but real talk though, you know what I'm saying? And so he sees those moments and sees the good work that we do in the community with kids and students and putting up murals, public art or whatever. And so it's like, okay, I can vouch for that. So when I went knocking on his door, so at the Contemporary Arts Network, just to backtrack, we have the Contemporary Arts Network is now 2 companies. So on the one side is the Contemporary Arts Network LLC, which is for profit. And then on the other side, it's the Can Foundation, which is a nonprofit. So we end up reinstating that nonprofit. And so through the nonprofit, we have an artist residency called First Patron Initiative. It's a year-long residency where we try to vet some of the top emerging talent in the state. And we actually have one artist in the residency who's in Baltimore as well. But one of our artists was, she actually just got finished doing her culminating exhibit for her year-long residency. And she wanted to do it in a very poignant place because part of her, pretty much the theme of her exhibit was dealing with incarcerated peoples, right? So basically how people who have family members who are incarcerated, have to live and cope with that and maintain relationship and maintain life. So one of her family members, her brother actually is incarcerated in, state correction facilities. And so as her culminating project, she basically documented their relationship together through that process. So she got a steel cell welded, the exact replica of his prison cell. And she created a 40-foot tapestry of images from their life that draped over the cell and had different elements from their life, like pictures and, letters that he wrote back and forth from jail, even had recorded phone calls that you could, hit a QR code and listen to. And so, the poignant nature of that body of work and show had to be in the right space. So, we have our own space, which has a couple galleries in there. But what she needed to bring her work across, right, was something that was not a gallery. She needed something that could take people out of that high art element and bring them into the nature of the work. Mm-hmm. So this is where relationships come in, because we have been trying to get that courthouse forever. And that courthouse, which at that time was still in use, is now not in use, but is still connected to an active jail, Hampton City Jail. And so I called up the mayor. He graciously took a meeting with me and called in the city manager, pitched the idea, and they granted us access of the courthouse to do her show. And so we had a prison cell, right, put into a courthouse that has sent thousands and thousands and thousands of people to jail, right? With this artwork, and then she invited people the day of the opening to read letters from their family members from jail and prison. It was powerful, man. The mayor came, you know what I mean? And so, like, this is like the impact, you know, like when I think about the work that we do as the Contemporary Arts Network, we're involved in a lot of different forms of art, right? But it's not just art for art's sake, right? It's art with an impact. You know what I mean? Like, how can we use our art to help inform, to, you know, help progress things, to help give people a different outlook, you know, not just art for art's sake, you know?
No, I definitely get that. That's where kind of we are right now in the world too. It's like it's just a balance between art and kind of just making money off that shit. It's like, what do you do it for? You know? What about you? Like, did you where do you get this like passion for art? Like,
so I guess it started young, right? So my mom always had art in the house, and she used to make a lot of art when we were kids, me and my brother. And I guess she also had the foresight to allow us to freely explore our creativity. But also my father's dad was an artist. And so I spend a lot of time with my dad's parents, who were like art collectors, and my grandfather was an artist, but also an entrepreneur. So he was a businessman, but also made art. And so it was interesting seeing that. And my grandmother was an educator. And so they were always taking me to museums and, you know, plays. Like, I was just talking with my wife the other day. Like, I think I've probably been to more Broadway plays than, like, anybody, right?
that's funny.
Like,
Where's Broadway at again?
New York.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Baby had was it the Bop video on Broadway?
Possibly.
Legendary.
Yeah, possibly.
It was on Broadway.
Yeah, it was fire.
So like art was always in my cipher. Like, my older brother used to draw like crazy. And he started out editing videos like on VHS.
He does videos now, right?
He's always done videos.
Who's your brother?
Chip Stacking.
Okay.
Yeah, AKA Chip Stacking. Everybody calls him Chip. He's been known as Chip for 20 years, but Tristan Jackson, yeah.
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 What are some other, like, you touched a little bit on just trying to kind of opening up a business in the city, but like, what are some other like kind of hurdles you guys had to go through, maybe even with the city on maybe permit side or with customers, or just what's it like opening especially something like art, where it's just not like, it's not like opening a restaurant, like people got to eat.
Yeah.
They gonna come eat and try it out at least, but it's like nobody really has to come look at your art. Like, what are some like struggles y'all went through?
That's interesting. Because art seemingly isn't a necessity in people's lives, but it is.
But it is. No,
you know what I mean?
I get it. Yeah.
Right? Because everybody listens to music, everybody watches movies, right? Everybody goes to get entertained somewhere, dance or whatever, right? All of these are forms of art, you know? So art is essential, right? Everybody reads and writes and stuff like that. But in the starting a business, right? Like, I think for me, it's all about just doing, right? Like, when I was 20, I was living in Boston. I was going to Boston University. And I was like in the party scene. I was throwing a lot of parties, but also doing a lot of graffiti around town and making a lot of artwork. And I got to a point where I felt like throwing house parties and making art in the house and stuff like that was like
Childish.
it was not enough. Okay. So I teamed up with some homies and we ended up getting this like warehouse space and started like really doing parties and shit and really having an art studio. But it was completely unorganized, right? So we didn't keep it for more than like 7 months,
Okay.
right? Because it was a bunch of 20-year-olds and 19-year-olds trying to figure the shit out, you know? And so we all weren't on one accord, but it was a great time while it lasted. But I've always since then sort of had my hands in spaces, whether it was me as an artist on contract with a gallery showing my work or me trying to have a studio or me trying to get a pop-up space or whatever. Like I've always kind of like had a pulse on spaces. And so I think like the more you try to do stuff, the more you learn along the way. Like, okay, you try it. It might work, right?
Yeah.
It might not work, but you're gonna learn something, right? From this moment that you will take into the next moment. And so
Yeah.
I guess for the last, 12, 13 years, I've been trying a lot of stuff. And every time I learn something new. And
No, it's funny because sometimes a lot of times knowing what not to do can sometimes be more important than knowing what to do.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying?
Like even with like city permits and stuff like that, all that stuff, it's a learning process. Like, a 18-year-old might not know how to like pay taxes yet because they haven't done it.
Yeah.
But then once they
Which
do
we
it,
didn't learn in school. I don't know.
right?
See
But
why
you
not,
gotta
but
learn, right? You gotta learn at some point, right? And so, like, it becomes a necessity. Learning becomes a necessity. Like, but for me, this is an interesting thing with me, right? Is that I have a very unorthodox planning process.
In what way?
Because I don't plan step by step. I plan the outcomes.
Me too.
Right?
And you figure it out on the way there?
Right.
Bro, I do the same shit.
So planning with intention, right? Like knowing what it is you want first.
Yeah.
Like not worrying about how to get it and how to get there. Actually, that's irrelevant. You know what I mean? Like the steps on how to get there are irrelevant, right? Like knowing exactly what you want is the most important thing because when you have the clear vision and you believe in the vision, right? When you believe that whatever you're dreaming up can be real and is just a couple steps away, right? The atomic level of your thinking, right?
Yeah.
Interacts with your surroundings. And you put out the vibe that you're ready. You feel what I'm saying? When you get the clear vision of what you want and you believe that it's gonna happen, the universe is like, got you. And then the universe starts putting the right people in your path, starts putting the right things in your path, starts putting the right coincidences in your path to line it up to make it happen. You know?
Manifestation.
Like, real talk.
That's what you
like
broke down.
The first gallery that I owned and operated came to me the day after my birthday when I turned 26. On my 26th birthday, I had recently seen some homies, Hampton Boyer and a couple other homies that I work with, Travis Sykes and Chad Hastings. And we hadn't seen each other in a while because Travis and Chad have been out touring with a band. So they've been all over the world for the last couple of years touring. And then me and Hampton, we were always, art buddies, but never like really close before that moment. So on my 26th birthday, we all linked up and we were chilling in my homie Hampton's crib. And I said, man, now that we're all back in VA, here or whatever, we should get a space, man. We should, get either a storefront or a studio something where we can work and exhibit and do shows.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, yeah, that's tight. But how much is what we got? How much money do you think we got to put together to make it happen? You know what I mean? And I was like, dude,
I'm thinking too much. You overthinking it?
yeah, bro. Don't fuck my birthday up, bro. Like, you know, you know what I'm saying? Like, stop putting the obstacles before the vision, bro. And so they was like, yeah, you're right. So we just spent the rest of the night just talking about the vision. And the day after my birthday, this was 2014, right? The day after my birthday, I get a email or a DM on Facebook from a property manager, right? Saying that she saw a little mini documentary that PBS put out online about me or whatever, and she was like,
can we get back to that, please?
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so she saw that and was like, "Oh, I think you're the perfect person. Like we have this space, and it used to be a gallery, and they moved out, and it's been vacant for 2 months. I saw your thing. I think you'll be the perfect person to take over this space, and you can actually come have the keys today."
And it's the day after y'all.
This the day after we said we need to get a space. The very next day, I get a fucking email when I wake up in the morning. You know what I'm saying? So she must have been thinking about this stuff when we was talking about it. You feel what I'm saying? So I wake up in the morning saying, okay, come meet with me. You know, you can. So I go to see the space. She gives me the keys. I'm like trying to ask her about the lease and what it's going to be. She was like, look, I think you onto something with what you're doing. You could just have it. You know, just get insurance, get your business license, and you just can have this space until you get ready to move out. And I ended up having that gallery for 3 years. We did like 50-some shows in that space. And we exhibited over 220-some artists in that time and did mad music shows and poetry stuff. And that kind of grew into the beginnings of the Contemporary Arts Network out of that space too.
I don't know if you're religious. I would say that's God, bro. That's, you know what I'm saying? Wow.
But that's an interesting thing to say, right? Because what is God, right? You know, because like, you know, we don't have to, you know, there's no way to know, right? But ultimately, my understanding of things, right, is that everything is, right? And everything is, right? And I am that. You feel what I'm saying? So on the molecular level, right, we could talk about atoms and electrons and all that, right? So everything is similar. Everything's the same, you know? And to me, that's the nature of God. It's like in the Hindu culture, right? They talk about Shiva, right? Shiva's 1/3 of the Godhead, right? With Brahma and Vishnu, right? But Shiva is the destroyer, right? Brahma is the creator, Vishnu is the sustainer, and Shiva is the destroyer, right?
Okay.
But Shiva also is the body of the universe. So like all of this is Shiva, right? The couch, the air, you, me. It's like the being with 1 trillion eyes and ears. You know what I'm saying? And arms and legs. You know what I'm saying? Like, so ultimately it's like, man, God is here right now. God is me. God is you.
Everything.
God is everything, right? And so God can intimately interact with my thoughts. So my thoughts are things, right? So anything that I can think and imagine, right?
Yeah.
Can be real.
I just seen a study the other day, or I didn't read the whole damn study, but it was like a fucking article. They're saying they got some study where that is slowly getting to like to the point where they're thinking reality doesn't exist outside of our perception of it.
You know what solipsism is? That's solipsism.
I don't know what that is, but that's what it is.
Solipsism is solipsism is a belief or philosophy that states that there's nothing provable in the universe outside of your own consciousness, because everything has to be tested through your own senses.
Through your own biases, through your own
senses. Like everything that is out there in the world has to come through your brain in order to be experienced or studied. Right?
Have y'all ever read Descartes' Meditations?
Rene Descartes, yeah.
That's basically what he's saying in that.
Yeah, that's, I don't know.
Yeah.
All that we know is that our mind exists.
All I know, bro, is the older I get, the more the more I get smarter, as like wiser as I get older, the more I realize, the more I know, the more I realize how much I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's the biggest mind blower to me. Like when you realize, like, bro, we really don't fucking know.
Yeah.
Like it's like we live in a society where everything is like, okay, everything's secure. We got this shit figured out. I'm going to work. I'm paying my bills. I'm doing all of this. But then it's like at the end of the day, everything is just so. It's still a mystery. Like I feel like back in the day before, like, you know what I'm saying, before technology and all that, I feel like life was more mysterious, and now we think we have everything figured out, and we kind of lost the mystery. But nah, that shit's still there.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I think the people back in the day had it more figured out.
You think so?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, yeah. Yeah.
Two things I wanted to touch on too, bro.
I think now we more so control the technology that can give us the actual power. But back then there was no technology. They had to actually have the actual notion.
Well, they had technology. I mean,
what do you mean by power?
Well, not like how I can pull out the calculator.
Right, right.
Like I don't have to think about it.
Right,
but
right.
If we were talking about the the Chinese, what do you call that thing?
Yeah,
With
the abacus
the
and
little
all
balls,
that.
the
Yeah.
multiplication
I
chart.
would need to have understanding on how to work this apparatus to
Right.
get the answer.
Right.
Not just like type in the number.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I feel like I
Things
get
are
that, I
more
get that.
knowledge based.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, but also I feel like technology brought us a different level of it, because like before it was a lot of memorization. Like, does that really mean you're smart if you can memorize a lot of information? Now it's like it lightened the load on our brains. I don't need to remember all the damn multiplication tables or whatever it is. I can use that brain power towards other things instead of, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like it's lightening the load. Like,
But
I don't
you
know.
still need to be a critical thinker.
Yeah,
I
for
think,
sure.
Like, everybody
That's
talks
what-
about
yeah.
why do we have algebra and geometry in schools? Because when do you use it outside? I mean, it teaches you how to be a critical thinker. Like, you
And I
might
get that,
not
I get that.
use geometry, but when you start like processing critical thoughts when you get older, I mean, you draw back on
I get
those
it.
skills.
It's like your brain is actually a muscle. So when you're actually thinking harder, you're like working out type shit. But I wanted to get back to like the PBS thing, if we can get back to that.
Sure.
But I want one thing you also touched on that was real interesting earlier. You touched on like stability, and you were like, I think the gallery you had for like 7 months. You were like, it was fun while it lasted, but it wasn't sustainable. What are some kind of things you learn along the way that disrupts stability, and maybe some advice on just having sustainability in what you're doing?
For me, I think the only sustainability is like not stopping. You know? Because there's gonna be inevitably tons of ups and downs, right? Because that's the nature of things, right? So ultimately, it's just like staying committed to whatever it is you're doing and seeing it through, right? Follow through.
Yeah.
I think that's something that one may, put heavy weight on or not, right? But like following through with your plans and like following through with what you say you're gonna do, right, is worth a lot. Like even if it's just the accomplishment of one thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because even you take it to sports and you shooting that basketball,
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Not the game.
Right.
Like we just talking about this one shot to get to the
Right.
Like even that has to be
Facts.
like an actual thing, because if you don't lock in on the actual follow through for that shot, then you're liable to lose the game because you're not going to score as much to.
Yeah, what is a victory? It's all the shots
Right.
added up. You know what I'm saying? You gotta. One thing, y'all remember that one movie? Fuck. They said I forgot movie. It was like was it Mark Wahlberg? No, it was Matt Damon. He was like, slow is steady, steady is fast. I don't know. That shit just always stuck with me. He was teaching some dude how to snipe or some shit, but like that shit just always stuck with me.
Yeah, like I think you know you gotta have like with any organization, right? Like it takes like massive teamwork, and you gotta have like people you can count on, and people who you can jive with and vibe with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you know, every organization is it's an organization of people. You know what I mean? So you gotta have the right people, and you gotta have the right like company culture, right?
And I'm sorry to cut you off. And it's hard to get a lot of people on the same page.
Well,
In my experience, what I've seen, like,
I mean, that could be true at times, yes. You know what I mean? But then there's certain ways to get people on the same page, right? I think I think there's plenty of examples out there, right, of ways to get people on the same page, whether it's by fear, violence, higher vision, whatever, right? So in terms of a company, right?
yeah.
You know, somebody said something interesting to me one time. I was doing a little talk, and this guy from the audience said, "Singularity is ahead," right?
What does that mean?
And then he just walked out. But
Singularity is ahead.
right, but ultimately, what that means is like, you know, if you put a point, right, all the lines like converge to the one point. You feel what I'm saying?
Wait, what?
Like, you know, with 1 point perspective, right? Like if you have if you were to look at like a whole bunch of lights in the distance, they all
Going to
appear
1 point?
to be going to 1 point, right? Like 1 point perspective. So basically saying that all these roads are leading to the same place, right? But I look at that because if you can have a vision that is inclusive and that supports, then people will support your vision. And with the Contemporary Arts Network, right? Like our thing is basically we hang our hat on that, right? So think about that. Contemporary Arts Network. Basically, we're a network of people who work and involve themselves within the contemporary arts, and not just the visual arts, but any form of art, right? So we are here to help foster a network and to help create sustainable economic systems, right, within those networks. But then on the other side, the acronym of the Contemporary Arts Network is the CAN. Because you can do whatever the fuck you're trying to do, right? And especially if we get together to try to do it together. It's a lot easier to do it together than it is to do it alone. It's like even with like Nastasia's show, right? Like I was telling her, we were talking recently, her show at the courthouse was actually the best show I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying that because I was involved in it, right? Like I've been to the Louvre, bro. I've been to the Tate.
In
I've
France?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Like I've been to mad museums, bro. Mad galleries. Like her show in Hampton, Virginia at the old courthouse was the best show I've ever seen. You feel what I'm saying? And it's because all the things line up, right? And, you know, we work hard to serve the artist, but also to serve the community and make memorable experiences, but also learning experiences. And I don't know, I lost my train of thought where I was going with that, but yeah. Whatever.
Yeah. What's up with the PBS special?
So
PBS did a special on you?
So it was an interesting thing. So the local PBS station here is WHRO.
Okay.
Right? And then like PBS has like syndicates around the country, right? So like each region has its own like PBS station where they do local programming. But then sometimes the local programming that they do can get pitched up to the larger PBS station and get spread
to everybody else.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's happened a couple times over the years. So in 2014, one of the producers at PBS found out about me, I think through a public art competition, and so he tapped me. They were doing a new series or whatever, like highlighting different artists, and so they had me be the first episode, which was cool, and then that spun around for a little while. I ended up getting that space opportunity from somebody seeing that thing that was in rotation. And then the guy who ended up
The one after your birthday.
yes.
Wow. Okay.
So the guy who ended up producing that short film or mini doc or whatever, we became good friends. And then a lot of the people within WHRO continued to support my career and the things I was doing. So, you know, over the years, they've kind of been documenting since 2014 when we got that space. They've been documenting, like, you know, our whole process. So, like, maybe twice a year. Yeah. Like they're shooting a 30-minute documentary for Nostalgia Show.
Wow.
And so, like every year, maybe two or three times a year, you know, they put out a little mini doc or a short film.
Yeah. Are you getting paid for this, or are they just?
No.
Yeah.
There's just, I guess, it's just documentation, right? It's provenance, right? You guys know that word, provenance. Mm-hmm. So provenance is like, it's a term that people use in the art world a lot, which kind of speaks to like the history of something, but it's a general term that that speaks to like where something comes from or its origins, right? It's like the who, what, when, where, how, and why that makes something what it is, right? And in the art world, provenance is really important because like this is like pretty much the only way that you can actually find a true valuation for a work of art by knowing the history of it, right? Like, when was the work made? Where was it made? How was it made? Who made it, right? Then, who is this artist? Where did the artist go to school? Where did the artist show?
Would you say his provenance, or how would you use that in a sentence?
Yes, the provenance of the work or the provenance of the artist.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's like the backstory.
Yeah, I get that.
Like, you know, and so provenance is key. And so documenting somebody's story is a big part of provenance. It's like, I can tell you what I've done, right? But if like you read about it in a newspaper or a magazine or see it on TV,
It's different.
it sinks in way more than me telling you, right? And so, and then also, if you see it on any of those mediums, it's there forever. You can always pull it up again.
It's like the Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
Why do we only care about that picture? Because it was mysterious, because we know the backstory of it.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna be honest, I don't even know the backstory of it, and it's right there.
Well, here's the now. All right, what were you gonna say? Because I can take that far. So
The Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
You know, the same principle is like you can tell somebody, you know, your life story, you know, but then when they actually see it on film, like,
Yeah.
you know, it could be like me and you right here, and I see your story on TV, even though you just told me, it's like, dude, I didn't even know.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
That you just told me though.
Yep.
But it took me to see it on a different platform somewhere else to kind of like get the big,
Yes.
Yeah.
impact of what.
And that's kind of what provenance is, right? It's like you take an example like Jean-Michel Basquiat, right? Like he's like, you know, like kind of like the it artist of our time, like the Picasso of our generation, kind of. And so
He's alive today.
No, Jean-Michel Basquiat passed away in 1988.
Okay.
But in terms of the idol of the exemplary artist, like this is who the young generation looks to, right? Right. Jay-Z raps about Basquiat and all this, right? But
Yeah,
if
I've
you
heard
look at the trajectory of a young artist, right, and the provenance of a young artist, what makes an artist valuable, right? The backstory. So you look at Basquiat. So he has a Afro-Puerto Rican mom and an Afro-Haitian father, right? So like I guess that would be redundant, but a Haitian father and an Afro-Puerto Rican mom, right? Who are immigrants to New York City. So his dad was an accountant, right, who had money, and they owned their own building in Brooklyn where they housed other tenants, but they also lived there. So he grew up a trilingual child who could speak Spanish because of his Puerto Rican mom. He could speak French because of his Haitian dad. And he was speaking English because he was growing up in Brooklyn, right? So then his mom started teaching him how to draw when he was a kid, and they would go to the museums constantly, right? And so this is all provenance, right? Then when he was about 7, he got hit by a car and had to get his spleen removed,
Damn.
right? And his mom, when he was in the hospital, gave him a copy of Grey's Anatomy, which then inspired him to start drawing body figures and things like this. So this sparked his drawing skills at 7, right? And so, boom, by the time he's 17, 1977, he drops out of high school and ends up kind of like bumming it around the city, right? Around, Lower East Side Manhattan. Ends up becoming friends with different people from the Lower East Side. Now, 1977, this is the year of the blackout, right? So this is pretty much the birth, the real true boom of hip hop is coming around this time. So one of the friends that he befriends in 1977, 78 was Fab Five Freddy, who is like one of the grandfathers of the hip hop scene, right? And so he clicks up with Fab Five Freddy. Then he clicks up with Glenn O'Brien, who's like a filmmaker and has like a little closed circuit TV show in New York, right? And clicks up with Keith Haring, who's also an aspiring artist at the time, right? And, it's just a friendship. So talk about provenance, these relationships with other people who are important. Then, he ends up, getting, into the gallery system and, sells his first piece, his first ever painting to Deborah Harry, who's the lead singer of Blondie, right? The band. Okay. So then from there, he kind of blows up overnight in 1980, 81. He goes from selling his first piece for $200 to a year later selling on average for $5,000 in 1981 to a year or two later on average selling for $15,000 a piece. Then by the time of his death in 1988, he's selling on average for $50,000 a piece. Now, more of that provenance. In 1982, 83, he was dating Madonna before she was a star. He was already a star. They were already calling him the Eddie Murphy of the art world. He was already on the cover of New York Times, and he was dating a rising, emerging talent, Madonna. So he was able to shed more light on her career by that association. So we talk about provenance, right? Then he was a part of a band and produced one of the first hip hop records, which is Beat Bop by Ramel Z, who was one of the founding rap artists, but also a crazy graffiti dude too. So all of this is going on, boom. Now, years before he died, he became very close with Andy Warhol, who was also a huge artist, right? So Andy dies before Jean, but Jean dies in 1988. So in 1995, they make a film about his life called Basquiat, which what's my dude's name? He's a well-known actor now. He played Martin Luther King. He played in Shaft. He played Peoples, the dude Peoples in the movie Shaft. You know what I'm talking about. So he played, his first ever role was playing Basquiat. Yeah, right? Yes. So check out the film, right? His first ever role was playing Basquiat. And so boom, around the time of that film comes out, now his work skyrockets to about $350,000 per piece on average. This is the mid-90s, right? Now, continue on, right? His contemporaries are growing. He's growing. Now, he's dead. You feel what I'm saying? But his work is growing in value because his contemporaries are growing in value as well. And the meaningfulness of that time, which is now past, of downtown Manhattan in the early 1980s, is past, and that's becoming more valuable, right? Yes, Jeffrey Wright. Yes. And so around the early 2000s, they start putting out some,
bro. I'm gonna use the bathroom real quick.
Yeah,
but keep
sure.
going, it's fire.
They start putting out some documentaries on Basquiat. His work start going up to the low millions, right? 1 or 2, 3 million in the early 2000s, right? Then they put out a film that was made in 1981 where he starred in the film as an actor before he ever had fame as an artist, right? When he was still homeless on the street, they had him starring in this film, right? So then they redid the film and put it, they didn't redo it, but they re-put it out in like 2005, which then made his career boom a little bit more heavy. So now he's like fully stamped in the art world. Now you're seeing his work printed in a lot of art magazines and a lot of art history books and stuff like this, right? And so now it's standard to be able to see a Basquiat painting at a museum, you know, at a top museum wherever in the country, right? Then 2011 happens. Holy Grail, Magna Carta, or whatever, right? So Jay-Z is rapping about Basquiat now. So then in 2011, you see Basquiat skyrocket, right? From at first being like the $2 to $5 million range to now he's skyrocketing at 25 million in 2011, 30 million, 40 million, right? So that Jay-Z influence continues because now people like, from the Jay-Z influence, you get people like Swiss Beats that are getting more active, right? You get people like Carmelo Anthony. You get people like Stoudemire, Amari Stoudemire, who are becoming active collectors now, but are on this hip hop shit. And they're looking at Basquiat as a young example of a young black, you know, Afro, Haitian, Puerto Rican dude from Brooklyn. So they're looking at him like the guy. So they all start buying Basquiats. And so in 2017, the year I moved to LA, right? Basquiat set the American record for the most expensive painting ever purchased of an American artist at auction for $110.5 million for a painting that he made when he was 21 years old and originally sold for $12,000. And the same owner who bought it for $12,000 resold it for $110.5 million, right? And so all those factors, the reason why I gave you that long drawn out story, right, of just a portion of the details of his life, right? All those factors are part of his provenance, which gives him the value, which gives the reason behind the $110.5 million.
Arguably, the provenance is more important than the work.
It is.
Yeah.
The provenance, it's like, it's all one thing, but it's like, I'll give you an example where provenance, so there's this other, I like to tell this story because this story is dope as hell, right? Because a lot of people sometimes think that like, if you don't have all these dope ass circumstances, that the value's not there.
Okay.
When in all actuality, the value is still there. Because if you can track down the provenance, right, everything can be linked to something. So there was a guy, have you guys ever heard of Jackson Pollock?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so Jackson Pollock and Mark Rothko and stuff like that, these guys were a part of a movement in the 40s and 50s called abstract expressionism, right?
Yeah.
And abstract expressionism was like a big boom of abstract art in America, right? Which was really centered in New York, right? So at that time, you know, Jackson Pollock was booming. This is a guy who does the crazy drip paint, right? He was booming. His style was becoming very well known around the world or whatever, right? And so he was living in East Hampton, New York, which is on Long Island, the Hamptons, right? So there was a gentleman At the same time that Jackson Pollock was living in East Hampton, New York, there was a Jewish gentleman living right down the street from him. Never met each other though.
Yeah.
Right? Or we don't know. But it wasn't a documented relationship, right? But the guy was also a painter. And he was also painting in abstract art. So this guy painted and painted and painted for decades. He ends up dying in the early 2000s, right? And he was an unaccomplished painter. He never sold one painting, never had one show, right?
Yeah.
And when he passed away, his kids, thinking that he was an unaccomplished painter and his work wasn't worth anything, right? They end up selling his house for like $350,000, right? And then he had like 5,000 paintings sitting in the garage, right? Of
They
the
sold it
house.
with the house.
They sold it with the house for like an extra $1,000 or something, right? Thinking that it had no value. You feel what I'm saying? So the guy who buys the house, right? He's an art collector already, right? And he knows a little thing about art. So he takes 2 paintings out of the collection of 5,000, right? to an art appraiser, right? And the 2 paintings get appraised for $300,000 a piece. So he ends up selling those 2 paintings,
Yeah.
right? And then opening a gallery to house the rest of the 5,000 pieces.
Did he give the guy credit?
Huh?
Like, did he give the guy credit, or did he say where they came from and all that?
In terms of the artists?
Yeah.
So that's why it's important, right? Because when you look back into the life of this unknown artist that never sold a piece and never had a show, what they found was he was living right down the street from Jackson Pollock and Willem de Kooning and Mark Rothko, who were the top artists in the world at that time, right? This guy's living right down the street painting in a similar style with arguably a equal quality level, right? And even though he never had the eyes on him, right, his work was arguably as good as theirs. And he had just as much of it, if not more, right? And so all those factors factor into the importance and the value of this work and why it needs to be looked at and thought about, right? Now, going back to your statement about the Mona Lisa, the reason why the Mona Lisa is such a great example, right, is because it really illustrates to me this notion that nobody really owns artwork. Nobody ever owns artwork, really, right?
You said hard work or artwork?
Artwork.
Okay.
Nobody ever really owns it.
Okay.
Like, people are only really stewards of it. You know what that means? Like, it's
Like carrying it.
Yeah, you take care of it for a time period, right? Because ultimately the art is meant to last longer than us. You know what I mean? Like, you can own a pair of tennis shoes because you know you're going to beat these shits up. And when they're done, right? But like with artwork, it's not an ownership thing like that. Because ultimately, even if you never give it up, when it passes, it's supposed to go somewhere.
Yeah.
It's supposed to continue to be carried on and taken care of and valued, right? And that's the only reason we have museums today. Because when you think about the Mona Lisa, for instance, right? That shit was painted in the 1400s, you know? And the artist never sold that piece in his lifetime. He actually kept it with him till his death. But how he valued it made whoever come and take care of it. And how they valued his life made them take care of the work.
Did the
right?
second person sell it?
Well, yes, for 600 years. You feel what I'm saying? But here's the crazy part. That thing was taken care of, preserved, and passed down for 500 years, right? And then in 1917, it was stolen out of the Louvre, right?
Wasn't it in someone's like house? Like they just found it, like or something like.
Well, the guy who stole it, this is the crazy part. The guy who stole it was an Italian dude, right? Because you know Da Vinci's Italian, right? And the Louvre is in France.
Yeah.
And the guy who stole it was an Italian janitor who was like just crazy patriotic, right? It was like on some shit like, yo, the Mona Lisa deserves to be back in Italy.
Hey, yo.
So he stole the joint. And then years later, they never found it. He ended up just turning it back in years later. And what they ended up doing, like once they turned it back in, Italy was like, nah, y'all can't have this shit back. You know what I'm saying? Y'all got to pay us to get this shit back because this is one of our national treasures, right? And so France in the 50s had to put a countrywide tax and raise $700 million in the 50s
To buy
to
from
purchase
Italy.
that work back from Italy. Now, $700 million in the 50s. Think about how much money that is today. That's like maybe $4 billion.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? For one piece of artwork that's this big, I've seen it in person. It's this big. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the importance. That's a
Yeah,
part
it's
of
like-
that's history. That's a part of history, right? That's a treasure. There's no monetary value for that. Like a lot of people don't understand like this thing like value and price is two different things. You know what I mean? It's like you could get a value meal. You know what I'm saying? For like $5. You could get a burger and some fries and a drink. And it'd be gone in 20 minutes, right? Or you could buy a movie ticket, right? For $5, right? And hold on to the movie stamp, right? And have that signify something, you know, in your relationship forever that you could pass down to your kids and some more shit. Or you could buy a piece of like faux jewelry, right? For $5, right? That, you know, you might give to your grandma and make her feel good, right? So the value of $5 can fucking change and change and change. The price
Yeah, for sure.
stays the same, but the value is different. What you can do with it, what you can get out of it is completely different. And so like, you know, when you think about artwork is really priceless. You know what I'm saying? Like the value of it, like you can't put a price on it really. But the price is just something that's like a fair thing for us to exchange. You'll give me X amount of dollars, which makes me feel okay with giving you a part of my life.
And what is art really though? It's really what's at its rawest form. It's feeling, it's emotion. You know what I'm saying? It's not even a thing. When you look at a painting, you're not really. I mean, honestly, I'm not really too into paintings like that. But it's like I'm assuming you get a feeling from it. You're buying it for the feeling it gives you. You know what I'm saying? Or just like pretty much any art.
Yeah.
So it's like what is that value? Because the value is not the thing. You know what I'm saying? That goes into like a bigger question of what is the real value in art?
Yes.
What does it do to us? You know?
I love that line of questioning and line of thinking, right? Because like when you think of the functionality of art, right, it changes periodically, right? From era to era, history, right? So like what art meant in one time period and how it is expressed is completely different in another time period. Like if you look at like the Egyptians, right? And the ancient Egyptians, like they made the same type of art for thousands of years because that artwork wasn't random art the way we make today. It was a language and it had to be perfect. So like the dimensions on any random thing had to be exact because it was a language. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas like the way we make art today has nothing to do with that in particular. But then like when you think about like a tribal society, right? A shaman, for instance, who's like more close to like a priest, like a high priest or something. A shaman may go into a trance, right? And see visions and connect with, you know, the deceased ancestors and all of this and come back and make a drawing in a cave or come back with a dance, you know what I mean, to connect with the spirits. These are all forms of art, right? But they all have much higher purpose for connecting man to understanding his surroundings and the cosmos and all that. You know what I mean? So art for art's sake is like, you know, that's some new shit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's big.
George Orwell said all art is political, all art is propaganda. So if you think of art in that context, then I've seen people try to judge art and like, is it not art because it isn't political, but what makes it not political? Every piece of art that I feel like I've experienced has, I could relate and put and make it political. Not necessarily politics, but you know what I mean by political, right?
Well, I think it's political, right? Because of the people who own it, the people who can pay for it, the people who can buy it and hold it, right? Or commission it.
Yeah.
So traditionally, right, it's the power people. It's the 1%, the people with the money, the people with the power, the people with the influence who can afford to either patronize the arts, fund the arts, collect the arts, whatever.
Yeah, I don't feel like it would come from a political place. Like it kind of just
Orwell
But
from the artist, though. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
I think what he meant more so was all art is a statement in a form that is political, not necessarily like the way it travels or is obtained, but the statement it makes. Like every piece of art is intended to make a statement. I think even if you don't think of, even when like if I write a poem, I'm not thinking of the statement I'm making. I'm just experiencing writing this poem, but it makes a statement to someone else.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
I get
I
it.
think so. It's a stamp. Look at this. Think about this. You know what I mean? But also, I think that it can be like used politically with power too. I mean, we see that. Like if I say think about Jesus right now, right? We can all drum up an image of Jesus, right? Which is based on a commission. You know what I'm saying? From like 600 years ago, right? Have you ever thought about this?
What?
What is Jesus?
The imagery that we still kind of carry as the standard basic imagery of Jesus, right? Was created in the 1400s. Actually in the 1490s, right? By Da Vinci, right? You know what else happened in the 1490s?
What?
Two other extremely significant events happened at the same time as this shit.
What
And
is it?
actually, the printing press, there's one of them. It happened just a couple decades, right? All of this shit happened within 2 or 3 decades of each other, right? But in the 1492, what did Columbus do?
So, yeah,
Okay.
that's what I was about to say.
So in the
That's what I was about to
1490s,
say.
right? Columbus was taking the message of, Europe to these new worlds, right? Him and other explorers, as we know, right? Around that same time, Da Vinci and others created a new European image of Jesus, right? Prior to that, all of the images of Jesus were based on Byzantine Empire, right? Which is more Asian and Middle Eastern, right? And also, in the late 1400s, Johannes Gutenberg created the printing press. And the first and only book printed for several years was the Bible. And so you take this new image, right? This new word, right? And carry it. This is the weapon, along with, guess what else happened in the 1400s? Guns were invented, right? Like the European style of guns, right? Because we know that the Chinese were using gunpowder for a long, long time. But the way that we use it in a musket form and like shit like that, that was the 1400s. So guns, the Bible, an actual image of God, right? Which is based on the European, right? The printing press, the slave trade, right? The transatlantic slave trade. All of this perfect storm was happening in the same couple decades. So influencing people's minds about religion based on imagery based on editing of words, based on spells, which is literally spelling, like putting things into word form on paper, right? Like all of this had massive influence, which comes top down. This is sanctions and charters by kings and popes, right? Now, at the same time in the 1400s, you had the Pope creating laws that the rich people had to become art collectors and patrons of the arts. That was actually a law. Like if you lived during the time of the High Renaissance in Italy and like places like around Italy, like Florence and Milan, and you were a part of the 1%, you had to be an art patron. It was not even a choice.
Yeah.
And because of that, we have all of the great art of the High Renaissance era because people were made to commission those artists to do that. There wasn't a choice. It'd be like, yo, if Ferguson Enterprises and Newport News Shipbuilding and Casey Auto and Canon, because they're like the biggest companies in Newport News, like if there was a law in Newport News that said, yo, y'all have to fund the arts. You have to give a couple million, each of you have to give a couple million directly back into commissioning statues, into commissioning plays, into building museums to stand the test of time for the next generations. That's what they did in the 1400s. And we still are traveling to those places to see that artwork that they had the foresight to build for us.
Would
see
you
what I'm
want to see
saying?
something done like that done today?
Of course, absolutely. I think it's our duty, and that's what I'm working towards on the Art Commission. That's what I'm working towards with the Contemporary Arts Network. Is like, yo, do this thing properly. You know,
Yeah.
like art is the spice of life, yo. It's like it's how we express our culture. It's how we express our, you know, perspectives and mentalities, right? And it also gives us that sense of being human and connected, right? And so the more art, the better. But then that's like sappy on an actual tangible thing, right? The more art you have in a place, the more it attracts talent, the more businesses thrive, the more communities develop, the more businesses come to communities, the more art you have there, right? This is facts. This is like business study, right? Art usually brings in gentrification. Like as soon as you see a community start to get muraled up, then businesses want to come be there. Then people start to come live there.
That's
You feel what I'm saying?
Downtown. Have y'all seen well, you don't go downtown a lot, but he did like the portrait on the side of that building right on 26th Street. He did that.
What's the portrait of?
Ella Fitzgerald. Well, I did 3 of them. So there's Ella Fitzgerald.
I may have seen
There's Pearl Bailey and the other one is slipping my mind. But it's on Esquire at Barbershop. It's a historic lawyer from Newport News.
It's
Hale Thompson, W. Hale Thompson. Yeah. So I did three of those murals downtown, but
and now look at downtown being gentrified.
well, yeah, and that was a part of it. The city paid for those murals. You know what I mean? And the city is also actively buying up those buildings and putting incentives for business owners to come get them and take them. But that's historic. You know what I mean? We see it in New York. We see it all over. Like, let the artists come in, make the scene hot, make the scene pop. Then that attracts the business. Then the businesses come, that attracts the talent, like the top young talent, because now the young talent, this is where Newport News is behind, right? But this is where we need to catch up. Because the more you invest in the arts in your communities, right? The more lively your communities become. You know what I'm saying? The more music festivals you got, the more venues, the more restaurants, the more art galleries you have, the more fun the community becomes, right? The more fun the community becomes, right? The more business investors, right, can see, oh, this is a place where people are spending money and enjoying themselves. Let me go, you know what I mean? But then also the young and emerging talent, the top people graduating from colleges are looking for places to live where they can work and play all in one place, right? So they want places where it's a happening music scene, where it's a dope art scene where they can do art crawls, where it's a dope restaurant scene, right? These are all the arts. You feel what I'm saying? Even the rest, that's culinary arts, right? So the arts is a real economic driver. It actually makes things attractive. Like, and then even the high arts, like when you think of a place like Italy or France, right? Like the Mona Lisa is housed in the Louvre, which was also built in the 1400s. You know what I'm saying? But the Louvre, right, is a museum that millions of people go to every year, right? We don't even have a fucking art museum in Newport News, right? The Louvre, millions of people go to. And don't quote me on that 1400s for the Louvre. Now that I'm thinking about it, that's Louis the 14th. That was a mix-up. That's the 1700s. So the Louvre, people go to see, millions of people just go to see the Mona Lisa, bro.
Yeah.
But those millions of people that go to see the Mona Lisa, think about the process of that. They have to book their air flight, right? So now millions and billions of dollars are going to the air companies just for people who want to go see the Mona Lisa, right? Then when they get to France, they got to book their hotels. So now millions and billions of dollars are going into the hospitality industry, right? Then when they're there, they're going to be eating food every day because they're not cooking in the hotels. So then millions of dollars are being dumped into restaurants, right? Then to get around, millions of dollars are being dumped into cabs and taxis, right? Then when it finally trickles down to the museum, right? They pay admission to get into the museum. Then they're gonna fucking buy postcards and all that shit from the gift shop.
Drinks and popcorn.
So just think about how big of an economic driver the Mona Lisa is. And this is not even talking about all the documentaries that it's featured in, all the postcards that sell all around the world, right? This is one work of art that literally brings in trillions of dollars around the world annually, right? And so that's the importance of art. That's the importance of having facilities that house art. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, yo, but you got to have the foresight. You know what I'm saying? Like, we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars annually in Newport News of repaving our fucking streets.
I feel like we're not doing that shit right the first time. Like, why are we repaving it?
I'm just saying, yo, I've been to cities that have potholes out the wazoo, but they got hella museums and shit. You know what I mean? Like, I'll deal with the potholes.
Bro, I feel like if anybody could do that shit, bro, like, it sounds like you the one that could get it done. Is ultimately, like you're saying, art helps everything. It's not just about the art. But then, what are there places right now that are doing this, that are making like top businesses fund the arts in their cities?
I don't know about making it, right? But you do have certain scenarios like in LA, right? Anytime new construction goes up, 1% to 2% of that budget has to go towards funding some type of art in that community, right? So that could be like you spending that 1% to 2% of that budget on like a sculpture that goes outside of the building, or artwork that goes inside of the building, or like giving it to some nonprofits in the neighborhood, right? But in places like LA, that's in place. That's why you see a lot of thriving arts in those communities, right? Places like Philadelphia, they have the same thing. Anytime like major projects happen, like some portion of that has to go towards arts, right? But that allows more nonprofits to live and get the money to the artists to actually work. So in a place like Newport News, this is sort of like an art desert, you know? Like, we don't have a museum. We don't have a lot of arts education. And the leadership is still learning.
You know, what's crazy, you just opened my mind to something that's right in front of your face, but you don't see it until somebody, like, puts it under your nose kind of thing. What is that over there in Norfolk? That, is it Norfolk, like that, Denby, or, Granby Street?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that. Like,
Yeah, the neon district.
Right, the neon district.
Mm-hmm.
And you just go on the side right there.
Around there, like, I see all these restaurants and, you know, these little businesses that's in the area, but there's also this big section where it's just like a lot of graffiti and it's a lot of art and it's a lot of creativity. Like where you will go and you'll see like skateboarders and you'll see like people that's coming out just to be creative and just to do their art. And with that, like you will see where like there's now restaurants and there's bars and there's, you know.
So that's a beautiful example, right? Like, do you remember what Granby Street looked like in 2009?
No.
It's probably just known for like ODU parties and shit. Like,
Yeah, so Granby, that section of Granby where the Neon District is, wasn't shit at all, right? In 2010, right, they had like an apartment building. The gun shop was there, but like it was like kind of like a rundown section of the town. A lot of the buildings were dilapidated. There were no businesses and restaurants on that strip at all.
yeah.
Right? In 2010, there was a building called the Zed's building. It was like an old furniture shop or something like that. Where like a little ad hoc community group from like residents who lived there and like a couple like people who worked at like in like this local publication called Alt Daily, and like one or two people from the Chrysler Museum, which is just a couple blocks away, had this like ad hoc group where they started to try to do initiatives in the neighborhood. And one of the first initiatives that they did was a beautification project where they selected 4 artists to do murals on this dilapidated building on Granby. And I was one of the 4 artists selected. This was 2010, right? Then we painted those murals. Then what they saw, you know, that spring following the completion of those murals, mad people started to come and take photos in front of the murals, right? So then 2010, they're seeing that. Mad more people are just coming to that destination just to fucking flick it up every day, right? People are skating down there, biking down there, whatever. So then 2011, in come a couple small businesses, because now that's becoming like a destination, an art destination, because that building is still there.
Yeah.
So Alchemy, which then turned into Work Release, right? Alchemy came and they set up shop. Then Zeke's restaurant set up a little thing, and then you saw a couple places come and go, right? But you saw more businesses and the owners of those buildings start to take care of the buildings more. Like once the art came in, they started to fix the buildings up. And then the city started to get behind that shit. You see what I'm saying? And then Zed's got tore down in 2012. But when that shit went, they turned it into the plot, which is what y'all are talking about now, that little concrete slab, yeah, that has like the human-sized chessboard and all that shit. That was the original art location for the original artwork that brought all that activity to that location. So you see, bring in the art, that brings in the vibe, you know what I'm saying? Brings in the people, let the businesses come in, create some incentives actually for the businesses to come in. Some tax breaks or some work with the landowners, work with the building owners to give some breaks on how to get people into these spots. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then boom, we saw that shit grow. So like 10 years later now, 11 years later, you know, it's a thriving arts district. You know what I'm saying? In that time since 2010, in 2014, you saw like the first art galleries finally opening in the neighborhood. And then some residencies opening, right? And then it became an actual thing. And then I think in 2015 or so, the city officially stamped it as the art district of Norfolk. So that took 5 years or whatever, right? But and then from then until now, like look what happened in 2014 to 2015. Like the main spot in the Neon, which was like the heart of the Neon, was Work Release, which helped Masego and Drum become famous. They were like fucking every weekend acts there for like a year. You know what I'm saying? Like the homie Charlie and Carrie Ann. I'm not saying that they were solely, you know what I mean? But but they were a part of that early push.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Giving them that stage and that look and whenever they need it. You know what I'm saying? And that's what happens when you actually get that type of energy really flowing within a spot. And the arts, man, the arts is impactful. I mean, everybody indulges in the arts, whether they know it or not. Everybody turns on that radio. You know what I'm saying? Everybody goes to that movie theater.
Is sport an art, would you consider?
I believe that it can be seen like that. You know what I'm saying? Anything can be seen as an art, right? Like it's just the context in which you take it in, right? It's like boom, like this Red Bull can right here, right now has no value other than holding this drink that I'm drinking, right? But if I decide to not discard this when I'm done, if I decide to save it, and maybe even have you guys sign it, right, from this day, and then I put it up in a safe spot in my house, right? And I pull it out 30 years from now, right? It's no longer a simple Red Bull can that has no value. Now it's a fucking artifact that has lots of value. So it's really just all in how you look at it. Everything can be viewed as art. It's just how you present it, how you look at it, how you think about it. You know what I'm saying?
Bro, listening to you talk about this shit, bro, it just I feel like I really feel like the Contemporary Arts Network is at early beginnings of something major, bro. It just reminds me. I was just like, I'm just interested in like origin stories and shit like that. It's like I was just talking to this guy, bro, the other night at the bar, and he's like 70 years old. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we were talking for like a good hour and a half. Turns out he's the original owner. It was his idea. He opened up the flea market right here on Jefferson.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like I thought that was big. Like in 1985, he opened that shit up. You know what I'm saying? Him and his wife. He said he put in like $5,000 to rent the warehouse out and stuff. And what is it? He said day one it was like 85 vendors and they're selling shit. Like 800 people came, and then he owned it for 20 years and ended up selling it. Wow. But it's like shit like that it's a staple in the city.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's still going on today. Like, and I'm sure it's probably gonna go on forever. You know?
Yep.
So it's like, yeah, like, and then you touched on too, like the I'm sorry, what was the place called that you said drum and
Work Release.
Work Release?
Yeah.
Yeah, like you want to see Contemporary Arts Network like doing stuff like that, like
I mean,
helping artists.
Yeah,
you know?
man. I mean, as long as I have, you know, life in my body, I'm gonna continue doing what I'm doing, you know. I feel like I've been doing the things that I do naturally, you know, since I was, you know, just getting into adulthood, and I don't see it changing because this is what I enjoy. I enjoy making shit happen.
Yeah.
I enjoy collaborating with people. I enjoy talking. I enjoy seeing people grow and shine. You know what I'm saying? And if I can help, you know what I'm saying, I'm going to help. And this is the thing, yo. It's like the more I can help people, the more strong I am. You feel what I'm saying? So I don't even trip too much about, you know, myself in it. You know what I mean? Just, you know, just lend a hand and give a hand, you know? And because this is the beautiful thing about Provenance, bro. Is if I spend a moment with you, bro, you know what I'm saying? I'm now a part of your history.
Yeah. Nah, I feel that.
And you're a part of my history.
Yeah.
So if you go somewhere big or I go somewhere big, it benefits us both.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying? And so like that's sharing, you know?
I always say it's about the moments, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Even like that's what even I feel like that's what people relate to the most too. It be just having a real moment with somebody. You know what I'm saying? What I was gonna ask you else? Oh yeah, I was gonna ask you too. What are your thoughts on NFTs in the art world? You know?
Oh man, that's a tricky one, right? Like NFTs are interesting, right?
Do you see it being around in 10, 20 years?
Yeah, I do, because I think that everything is digital, right? And so I can see it having a whole new life. I mean, like I remember seeing movies like maybe in like the early 2000s that would be like depictions of the future, right?
They weren't really that close usually, but
But maybe
Maybe we're not there yet. Maybe we're not there yet.
Well,
It was one for me. I was like,
yeah, I remember this one though, right? That was like, it was a movie, had Keanu Reeves in it. I can't remember what the name of it was, but it like everybody's consciousness was able to be downloaded on a thumb drive, and then like that thumb drive, you could plug it into a computer, and everybody had these screens, so you could like see, you could go back and rerun people's experiences.
I feel like I might have seen that, but they have like a Black Mirror episode like that too.
I don't know. I can't remember what the name of it.
You watch Black Mirror though?
Okay. I don't know what that is, but that
Isn't is it Apple? It's not Apple. Who was it? You were talking about it on the podcast one day, Samir.
What?
The company that's trying to buy your data so that when you die, your people can still kind of.
Yeah, it's not definitely not Apple. I forgot what it was, but
Apple.
yeah, it's some company that will take all your information and make like a digital version of you, and then your family can like talk to it and stuff. When
that's
you die,
what I'm saying. So you're only
that's
gonna
a real Black Mirror shit.
exist in a digital format anyway in that state, right? So like, as far as the NFTs, I just see it being a valuable thing because, like, where else do things exist now? Like, if you wanted to look up a picture of a photo shoot of Salma Hayek, right,
Yeah.
from some swimsuit magazine or something from the 90s.
Googling that shit, bro.
You're Googling it.
Yeah.
It exists on the internet, which is digital.
So it only makes sense everything will exist.
Everything
We
is gonna
might exist on the internet.
everything is gonna exist on the internet, bro. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know exactly how to get involved with NFTs right now. Like, I know the process.
Replicas.
Process.
That
but
was that what you talking about?
that's what the name of the movie is.
That is
Okay.
a fire ass movie. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yes, I think it's gonna be a powerful movement. I think it's gonna come in waves, and I think there will be bubbles that burst until it eventually.
Man, I dropped a little bag on a Bape NFT. I don't know if you
Okay.
seen Bape just did like their first NFT drop.
Okay.
So I was like, let me get this, man. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it'll have value. You might have to wait a while.
Yeah, I get it.
You know what I'm saying?
I expected that.
Yeah, but everything has value.
Yeah. Wow, man. I feel like we said a lot of things in this. You
We
said a lot
did,
of
bro.
things. Not a lot of
you
episodes.
got
I
me to
look forward
talk.
to editing. Like, I know when I edit this, I'm gonna relearn a lot of shit.
Word.
We like an hour 40 in, bro.
Word.
We could kind of, if you want, we could kind of wrap this up,
Yeah,
man.
we
Like,
can wrap it up, man.
the
I ain't
Contemporary
even talk
Arts
so much.
Network, man. You have a lot of shit going on. We didn't even get into the block party. You guys just did a block party, which was
Yeah.
like a lot of different events for
Juneteenth.
Juneteenth. Yeah. Contemporary Arts Network, man. They have a lot of events coming up. They have a lot of stuff going on, man. Definitely check them out. What do you want to lead the people with, bro?
Oh man, we all have like a limited time here, so do your best and do the most. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
See you on the other side.
Hell yeah. No, that's a good place to leave it, man. I
Yeah.
definitely appreciate you coming on the show. I could see this boy being president or some shit one day. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was all based off the arts, though, man. Nah, definitely respect that. I didn't even go
love,
into
bro.
this. Like, I feel like that should be the message of this episode. Like, art basically ultimately will help everything, every other industry, every other fucking aspect of life. So, if there's any politicians watching or anybody like, I feel like this is the guy to call. Yeah, man. Thank you, bro. For real.
Hey, thank you, bro. Yeah, this has been great, man. We're gonna have to do it again.
Hell yeah, yeah. We appreciate you guys for tuning in too. All Bros links will be in the description. Definitely check them out. And yeah, we'll catch you next week. Peace.
Great. Awesome.